Okay,
There
there you
we
are.
go.
Okay, I was like trying to invite you.
I know. I was like, I remembered that I can request to join, so I thought that'd be easier.
Ooh, that's perfect. Let me turn my ring light on so it's better lighting. I mean, that's why I bought this thing. This.
My husband like ran in here. He's like, "Do you want me to help you with lighting? Like, you want me to do anything for you?" I'm like, "It's okay. Everything's fine."
Well, that's so sweet of him, though. That's supportive.
Well, I used to be an actor, and he got really into like being my camera guy and my lighting guy.
Well, that's like what my fiance does for me is like the techie stuff, which like I'm techie, but like when it comes to I don't know, like the computer stuff, the lights, when it's like my phone or something hardware related, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do it. But oh, I'm so excited that are connecting because I know we were going to do this in December, but with the holidays and everything and schedules, it was hectic and we pushed it back, but that's okay because I'm
Yeah.
excited for this to be like you're kind of like my last episode before maternity leave. Um, so I'm really excited to go out with such a positive note. And it's really good timing because one of my clients brought human design up to me because we were talking about just personality types in general and how do you build out your team in a way that like the personality types the human design align together. Like,
Mhm.
she was really interested to see if like my style aligned with hers, things like that. So I'm really excited for our topic because I am not very fully aware on human design in general. So that's why I was interested to have Chelsea on with me today because I think when you know more about yourself and how you operate, it just makes things easier or you can have clarity, you can accept parts about yourself. You're just that clarity is so, so, so important. So, Chelsea, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of talk about how you got into your business where you are now? Because I know it's a really cool story and you've had like some different transitions and pivots.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. I see Ben and I think Jeremy and Nicole. So, I'm Kelsey for those of you that don't know me. I am a visibility marketing and certified human design coach. I didn't necessarily start there, and I'll get to where I've been, but I essentially focus on helping introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive people like myself really get visible and market consistently online in a way that feels good. So, like Emma mentioned, it's a bit of a story as to how I got to where I am today. Um, like most people, had a lot of normal jobs growing up, but unlike most people, I also wanted to be an actress for a really long time, which I did pursue for the better part of my life. And then I also wound up working in film and television for about 5 years. I think Jeremy is actually a coworker of mine. He's a cameraman, and I think he's tuned in today, if it's the Jeremy I'm thinking of. And I wound up doing that for 5 years. And people, when they hear that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds so glamorous." Yes and no, mostly no, and it can be hard for a work-life balance. So when I met my now husband, I realized that I wanted something drastically different. Didn't really know back then I was an introvert, but I knew I was a homebody and I wanted to do something different. So I, before knowing that COVID was going to hit and destroy the world, I had been
No.
planning, surprise, I had been planning on becoming a brand and website designer. I was taking a
Right.
course, and when it hit, it was either go back to film, which didn't feel very safe,
No.
or launch my own business. So I saw it as a sign to do that. And in my first year, I learned a lot. So I'm sure, like most people, like you're just like, oh my gosh, I want to do this thing. But then it's like, oh, I need something called clients. And how do I go about getting those? Like, where do they come from?
Yeah, I remember that phase.
Yeah. So I joined a lot of coaching programs over my first year. Um, And now that I know human design, I won't get too deep into that, but it makes a lot of sense as to why I jumped from thing to thing and tried so many different things. And along the way, I learned that I did identify as an introvert. I learned what an empath was, which is someone who's very deep feeling and just kind of carries the weight and emotions of others. Like when people tell me something, it will hurt my heart if I feel it deep enough, even through the screen. And highly sensitive is an actual studied thing where I process things on a much deeper level, nervous system wise. So combine that with online business, it was a lot in my first year.
So much.
Yeah. So naturally, I hit burnout every 3 months. That's at least the way I remember it. And I had to take off 2 weeks at a time just to kind of recuperate. And I look back seeing it as I was doing the things people were telling me to do, but not the things that actually worked for me. So I'm going to kind of get into how you can identify that for yourself and why human design has changed my life and business so profoundly. But that was a huge thing for me. And I'm also a perfectionist. So design for me, as much as I was good at it, I was so blessed to serve 9 people in my first year. I was making a living, but I just knew coaching was what I desired. I saw people doing it and I was like, I want to do that. And I had people affirming me, everyone except my coaches, and that was really hard. It took seeing someone online to be like, if you're a few steps ahead of someone, then you can become a coach, for me to just take that and realize that that's how I wanted to pivot. And I found human design. It was the last thing I ever thought I'd be into. As Emma mentioned in the beginning, we all know about personality tests, and I wouldn't equate human design to a personality test. But it helps you to think of it that way. It makes it more simple for people.
Yeah, that's
And when
kind
I
of how I
found
see it,
out,
but I'm glad you corrected me too, because I know it's a lot deeper. I just don't know how to classify it.
yeah, most people don't. So I'll get into that. But
Perfect.
yeah, finding human design, I was like, oh, what's this fad thing? Like, I'm hearing about it. I'll give it a whirl. And it just, like, I saw what my type was and I learned what it meant. And I dug through a lot of information. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this puts my whole life into perspective. Like, it just made so much sense. So I became certified very quickly. I just knew it was something I wanted to leverage with my clients.
Yeah.
And that's basically how I got to where I am today.
That is amazing. I am really excited because, well, one, Chelsea and I met through a program that we both we both overlapped at one period. Now she's doing a different group program, same coach, but we still network with each other. And I can relate to the sentiment of, everyone's telling you what to do in your business. And especially my first year, I'm like, I'm just going to listen to everybody. Like, just teach me. And it's so hard for people, I think, to not even in business, but in life in general, to get so in tune with like, how should I be doing things and what makes most sense for me. So I love that you combine like human design, but also just different parts of yourself. Like you've identified these pieces of yourself and been able to incorporate it in all aspects of your life. So I think that's so important. So like if you want to jump directly into human design, or if you want to say like what made you, because it's like I feel like yeah, I'm an empath, but I'm never like confirmed it, or like how did you kind of go about like identifying these key pieces of yourself? Was it through human design, or did you have to do that? Did you do that first and then that led into the human design? Or did like
Yeah,
human
great
design
question.
change it?
Great question.
I'm asking that right.
No, perfect. So it's interesting because in all of my group coaching programs, like I don't necessarily look back at them and say that they were all waste. Like I learned so much from each of them, especially when I found out something in my human design that made sense as to I'm someone who has to try so many different things. So I carried so much shame around that, especially when every month I'd pitch something to my husband and he knew it was coming. And I just felt like, why do I always have this urge to like do something different or join this new course? So along the way, as most people do, they take personality tests. So through things like Myers-Briggs, I had, a high level of introversion. Human design doesn't necessarily tell us whether we're introverted or extroverted. I feel like everyone kind of has little pieces of both. But that's kind of where I found out. And I just, through the pandemic, realized how much I loved internalizing and being home. And there were times that I wanted to be with family and close friends, but I'm a very one-to-one person. Empath, I think I just realized through finding out about, if no one's ever read it and you suspect you might be highly sensitive, there's a book by a woman who studies being highly sensitive. Someone called it out on me online and she said, I think you might be highly sensitive. So I started studying and realized that was in fact very much with what I identified with. And in my chart, actually, there is a defined channel, which, sorry for those of you, like I'm going to make this as simple and clear as possible, but it just tells me that I am indeed a highly sensitive person. People that don't have that doesn't necessarily mean they're not highly sensitive. I just have certain things that kind of connect the dots a little bit for me.
Okay.
So I would say it was kind of my overall journey, and then human design confirmed a lot of the nitty-gritty details.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you want to start with the basics of human design for anybody that's watching now or watching the replay who doesn't know anything about human design? Because the only way I've even heard about it is people in online business. Like, but it's not still even that popular amongst business owners yet, as much as you think.
Yeah, actually, it's less popular in the online business space versus the personal development space. So I heard about it in the online space as well. But there are so many people like Erin Claire Jones. She does, similar to what you said, it's so interesting to find how teams work together.
Yeah.
She does a lot of leadership readings. She sends out reports to people all over the world. So it's very much, human design essentially is based on your birth time, location, and date. It kind of combines a lot of different ancient philosophies, like the I Ching, Vedic philosophy, the Kabbalah. So it's got all these different influences. And what I feel like super interesting for me specifically is that I'm actually a person of faith, and most people wouldn't expect that I would be into human design. But I just see it really being a tool for people to understand themselves on a deeper level, versus like a moral compass that tells you how to live your life. And you can look at it however you want. But I see it more as a personality test, even though it's not essentially one, but it's just a really practical tool for people. And essentially what happens if you're into astrology, which I don't study a lot, but I use the information from human design to describe it, is depending on where you're born in the world, at what time and on what day, astrology plays a lot into how your chart, which is what you'll get if you ever run a test online for what your human design type is, you create all this definition, which kind of speaks to, what type you are, how you make decisions, and a lot of different information that you'll see in your chart, if that makes it simple to understand.
Yeah, it does, because I didn't even know the background of it. So that was really cool to see, and I'm also someone of faith, but I do think it's, like you said, is a great tool to understand yourself better and how you operate, and maybe find some insight into, because I got really deep after my domestic violence issue into personal development. And when I learned about the Enneagram type, I got really deep into that. But this takes it to a whole nother level, in the sense of it's not just it, like you said, kind of ties in with astrology. So not just your personality, but like philosophies and things like that. And so my, I guess, follow-up question is, because the next step is, if people go and get their design online, like I've pulled mine, I have no idea how to start looking at it. So what can you give us, like a gist of maybe like I don't even know how many categories there are, or what you could fall into, or something simple. Like you don't have to go into too much detail, but kind of that.
Yeah, so it's a lot to look at when you run your chart. There are certain websites that can kind of paint a clearer picture for you, like mybodygraph.com is a really good one. Jenna Zoe, if you run your chart on her website, she has courses. What I always start with my clients is their type and their strategy. So there are 5 different types in human design. They all make up a certain amount of the population. And it's so interesting because we have each type in a certain amount that's best for society to flow in the way it naturally should, because everyone has their own purpose. And strategy is really how they live that out. So it might be kind of exhaustive for me to go into each type, but Emma, if at the end, like I did create a guide recently after we first spoke, that might help people a little bit more to get more acquainted with their type and strategy. But I would say that's always the basis, because that will just help you understand yourself a lot more and understand why you should do things in a certain way. And that's not me saying like, do it my way or do it this way, but really the way that's going to feel most aligned to you. And I always tell people, don't take anything at face value, even when it comes to human design. Always experiment and see what feels good and what resonates, and then kind of do away with the rest.
Right, because you really help people tap into their how they operate, not just the human design piece. Because, like you said, they've experienced a lot of different insight into yourself. So now then applying that to other people has got to be super valuable because it's hard sometimes to understand and process all these pieces by yourself too.
Yeah.
It's not intuitive human design, as at least when from the outside looking in.
Yeah, human design from the outside looking in looks really complex, and I aim to really help people make it I aim to make it as accessible as possible, and it really can be. And when you explain it and learn about it in that way, it's been so transformational for me and the clients that I've had and the people I've done readings for, which is if you're looking to get deeper into your chart, that's what it's called. I call it an intensive for business purposes because I like to set myself a bit apart. But that's essentially what it is called. And it's such a beautiful experience. I had my mentor do it for me as just like this gift, and I was so excited. And it just hearing all these things about yourself that you're like, oh wow, like yes, that and that makes sense. And it's just that confirmation, even if you suspect, it's just hearing it in a certain way, I just find like is so thought evoking and provoking for people.
Right. And since you brought it up a couple of different times, since I would love to hear maybe some examples from, or, hearing how this transformation, or what was like some key transformations that after you learned about your human design that you were able to implement or change in your business or in your life in general after learning.
Yeah, so this is kind of relate to how I want to serve you all today and provide value, because this was a huge part of my journey as well as what I see happen with my clients. The one thing I'll say personally is that finding out about human design and my type specifically really affirmed coaching for me. Not to say every projector, which is my type, should be a coach. It's just that our type is here to showcase a better, more optimal way of living and working to people. So we have this like very unique perspective and wisdom that we're meant to share with the world, but only when it's welcomed in. So my strategy is to wait for the invitation. So it made me realize that cold DMing felt so crappy for me because it wasn't really the way I was meant to communicate my thoughts to other people or my services. So I would say that was the biggest thing personally.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point because especially last year, I don't know, last year and the year before, I feel like the big trend was cold DMs, and now there's, I feel like, visibility on other strategies. Fun fact, that's how Chelsea and I met, was through a sales coach who teaches those kind of strategies for people who don't want to just DM, because I had a coach before that was her strategy. And I was like, I don't feel in alignment with this. Like, I don't feel good about it, or I'm not like even sure what to say. So I think that's so valuable that you're providing people with other ways and that you took the bold step in, this is in alignment with me. I'm going to run my business differently. So because I feel like that's what people are going to want to know is how
Yeah.
do you get your clients then what is your strategy if it's not the DM strategy?
Yeah, so disclaimer, I want anyone watching who feels like a more direct approach is for them, not to feel like I'm saying cold DMing is like a not business strategy, because it can be if that's what aligns to you and you do it in a way that's like very, kind of value giving and of an equal energy exchange for you and the other person. So basically, what I'm going to say and preface this with is it's going to be so unique to you, and that's the beauty of human design. But I'm going to share some ways that human design can help you get more visible and market in a way that's going to feel really good for you, which is going to really enable you to have longevity in your business, both personally and professionally. So Emma, I'm sure you can kind of relate, and keep in mind, everyone, I'm going to use Emma as my guinea pig because I ran her chart, and this is going to kind of be a mini reading for her. So I'm excited for that.
I kind of knew we were going to do this, but I didn't know we were doing it now, so I'm excited.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to kind of like weave in examples, and then I want to see how that resonates with you, because I always love to check in and not just like throw information or tell people. I always want to see that like that resonates or maybe not so much. And it will just help kind of simplify human design for people in a really easy to understand way.
Right.
So I find the first thing, and I know this was true for me and for most of my clients, is a lot of us struggle with overwhelm. And especially if you're newer to business, or maybe you've been through some programs that haven't felt the greatest, is we end up in this place where we just don't know what to do. Like we're frustrated and we're like, I've tried all these things, nothing's working. I have to get clients, but I don't know how to do that. So the way I see it with human design is when you really understand your type, you can kind of get a sense of what's going to feel good to you and how you can kind of operate in your life and business. Like I mentioned before, each type has an associated strategy. So I'm going to use Emma as an example. So Emma, you are a generator.
Yes.
So my husband is also a generator. And what that means is you're really here to build and create things in life and society. So you kind of have this inner fire in you, and you're an energy type, which means that you have more of a consistent access to energy versus me. I'm a non-energy type. That doesn't mean I don't have any energy, but it means that it's a little bit more inconsistent for me. So with generators, and I see this with my husband, is most times opportunities will kind of just come to you. And you don't necessarily have to chase things, but it's about really opening yourself up to what's coming your way, or maybe what you're not directly looking at in front of you. So tell me how that kind of resonates, and if you feel aligned with the consistent energy and kind of not having to chase things.
I definitely feel like in recently it's more in alignment because I feel like at the beginning of my business, I felt like I was constantly chasing opportunities, but I also can relate to having energy and wanting to build things for people because I do systems and operations, so that makes sense. But yeah, I do feel like I have a more consistent energy flow that does feel very in alignment because I feel always energetic. And now the flow of things is definitely easier.
Yeah. And so what I'd say to that, like generators can push, right? Like they can do that. But I guess what is best for them, or what can happen when you have an awareness that you're not meant to push, is that it just becomes easier to give yourself a little grace to know that you don't necessarily have to push. And then comes the trust part of, can I allow myself just to do what I love and follow my bliss, knowing that things are going to come my way? So that's obviously a portion like you'd work with a coach on, just holding fast to that, developing that trust, and knowing that you don't have to always just grind to get where you want to be, specifically as a generator.
That's very much in alignment with a lesson I had to learn last year, was to just trust that things were gonna work itself out, which I feel like I didn't really click until, October, November of last year. It's still hard So it always feels
Yeah.
like very trustful. But it's funny because I was on a mastermind call earlier and that topic also came up. So that's very in alignment.
Amazing. So the other thing I wanted to kind of address around not knowing what strategy to do. So again, knowing your energy type and strategy will help immensely with this. There are things called profile lines in human design. So I know this is going to seem really out there for people, but you have two profile lines. So one of yours, Emma, is the number 4, so the 4th profile line.
Okay.
And what that is the networker. So when I found that out, it made so much sense knowing you, because I know recently you started doing this series and you started guest podcasting and you have a partnership model. So that one profile line is what I love, well, both. I love to look at with my clients because they can actually be really tangible strategies for figuring out like how you can kind of evoke opportunities in your life and business.
Yeah, that's really actually spot on because the networking piece is what has gotten my business to where it is. And if anyone's been following this series for a while, they know I built like a referral network because it was more intimate to me to, have that kind of relationship with people and get clients that way. So that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
that's really ironic.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. And it's funny because it's actually more on your subconscious side, which means that we're not always as aware of this second line. But sometimes we can still embody it and not really know that we're doing it.
Oh, yeah, because that's not
Yeah.
my go-to.
Amazing. So that's kind of what to do when you're in that space of not knowing, like, what the heck do I do? I'm being told to do this by this coach. I joined this program and it's just like one size fits all. So really starting with the basics of your type and strategy and knowing that there are so many places to look in your chart that can help you narrow in on a strategy that will work best for you, which is going to enable you to get consistent and visible long term instead of just turning and burning every 3 months and pivoting or, having to rest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
yeah, so important. The second thing I see that happens with people when they're having a hard time putting themselves out there, we don't always love to talk about this, but mindset can be something that can get in our way. I always felt for a really long time that mindset was really frivolous and pointless because I'm a doer, and I won't get too much into my chart, but I'm very driven by pressure and emotions. So I was someone that constantly felt like I needed to be doing things, and I didn't have time to stop and take care of myself and focus on my mindset.
Yeah.
But now I tell my clients, because I've experienced myself, when we take that time, even if it's just 5 minutes, and we kind of take our thoughts captive and reframe them in a positive way, it helps my clients move things so much quicker. And within a day, honestly, they can just be putting out content or doing something they've been putting off for a while. And where human design comes into this is there are centers. I almost wish we could have like a chart pinned to the live so people know what I was talking about. But think about them as chakras. So if you know anything about chakras, they're in different parts of your body. They represent different things. So if you ever run your chart, you'll see 9 different shapes, and they all go with a certain body part and have their own theme.
That makes more sense now.
Yeah. So what I was talking about in the beginning, where like we become defined by, astrology and the movement of things and when we're born, we can also have openness. So definition, if you have like a center that's colored in, it's something that's really inherently in you that you can rely upon. For me, it's my pressure center and also my emotional center. So I'm very driven by those 2 things. Everything else is open. So that means that I'm really susceptible to any of those centers taking things in from the outside. So to make this really practical, I saw that in your chart, you have your ego center, which is open. So meaning it's white and it's susceptible to outside things. Now, what the ego represents, which probably sounds really obvious, is drive, ambition, success. So if you were someone that was getting really thrown off track by being in groups and seeing coaches post about 6 and 7 figure launches and feeling bad about yourself because maybe that's not what you want and maybe it's not where you are, I work with my clients to help them understand that this is normal, that it's happening because of this, and then to help them really piece apart if that's even their thoughts. So
Yeah.
many times, like, we can have thoughts that aren't our thoughts or feelings that aren't our feelings. And this is where I get into the nitty gritty of what is theirs versus what are they being affected by.
How can, I don't know if this is getting in too deep, but this is like you don't have to get really deep because I know this is like what people pay you for, but what is a sign that it's not your thought? Like how
Hmm.
is there like a, something to look like? Because I always am like, is this me talking or is this someone like, is it just intuition or like taking that space, like you said, to reflect? Yeah, I don't know.
Good
It sounds
question.
too
Yeah.
info sensitive for your
No,
process.
so it's a really great question. And what I would say is literally if you run your chart, and I wish I had a picture, I wish I had a second phone to like show you guys, but all of those centers, those different shapes, there are 9 of them. So if you have some that are colored in, that's most likely something that you think often, and you don't have to worry about that theme changing in your life. It's pretty consistent to who you are, versus if it's not colored in and it's white, then that's typically a clear sign that you're open and susceptible. And it could be that that's not for you. It's not your thought. It's not what you want. It's maybe not how you want to live your life. So that's a clear distinction. Open, susceptible, and we need to think about like how we in human design call it deconditioning or release of, you know, piecing apart what's us versus what's not, versus definition can show us what we can constantly kind of rely upon and fall back on. So for me, again, it's being very emotional driven and very driven to perform.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Because, like,
Yeah.
I do believe, because I'm very much on any kind of personal development, being able to be in alignment with yourself. So the more you know about yourself, the better you're going to feel, the better you're going to feel equipped to make decisions like that. And it makes so much sense, especially for business owners, which if you're on this profile, you probably follow me for business because I have a personal page and that's all my personal stuff. But just in case, you can apply this not only to your personal life, but your business. It goes both ways because I definitely, at one point last year, was like, I'm not doing any more coaching. I'm not doing any more programs. I need to be able to decide like what I want to do with a bunch of space, so that it's really empowering to hear, you know, there's so much information to dig into and how you can apply it to your not I love that you're very specific too about your marketing and your visibility because those are such an important piece. And I'm guessing with your background in acting, TV, PR, you probably know a little bit about the tricks of the trade on PR and, things like that. But um, you mention earlier when you said that you put together like a little like guide, or is like that your new, I guess, freebie or whatever that people can check out to help them with this? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah. So it's actually called How to Sign Your First or Next Client Using Human Design. So I wanted to create something really practical to help you understand your type, your strategy, and a marketing method that would help you sign your first or next client. Again, keeping in mind this isn't one size fits all, only do this thing, but just providing examples that, according to your type might feel best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can definitely drop that. Or, if you head to my link in bio, you can get it there. I just released it, so I didn't get it in time, Emma, for you to
That's okay.
pop it.
We can drop it in the comments after this gets posted. That's totally fine. And if you're watching live or watching the replay, Chelsea is tagged in this, so you can always go to her page. I also recommend you follow her, especially if you're resonating with anything that we've talked about or feel, called to learn more about yourself because it is so helpful, I think. And I can't
Hmm.
express that enough, especially if you're on the fence. It doesn't hurt to take a look, and the worst that's going to happen is you find out some stuff about yourself and you just have to process it. But it's better to know than not know. I don't know if that's how you feel,
Absolutely.
Chelsea.
Yeah, like I find, human design doesn't kind of like use any of the tactics of scarcity or pressure. Like it's really about coming to know more about yourself and how you work best. And from there, like it empowers you, like you said, to figure out what's going to feel good, to give you permission to listen to yourself and your intuition and figure out what's going to best guide you. And really, throughout the duration of your business, it allows you to just learn these things about yourself and apply them in business and in your personal life, in a way that's just going to make you kind of like the CEO of your business. I don't always love to use that term, but like it just empowers you. It takes your power back from all the coaches that maybe you've invested in and not seen results, or the strategies you've tried that haven't felt good. Or the structure you've been told to do that maybe is the opposite of what you need to do. So just to, I don't know if you wanted me to wrap up, Em, but I have one more thing I wanted to chat about.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
So the last one we just mentioned was mindset. So again, looking at our centers to see where we're getting thrown off track, and then implementing strategies that best fit you to help you move over those hurdles and get yourself out there and really help you stay in it in your business to see those results. And the last thing I wanted to chat about is knowing how your energy works. So yeah, with this, I'll just preface it by saying that like anything I say can be applied to your personal life, and human design can be very personal focused as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, today we're chatting about the nitty gritty of business, but this is so profound, like just to know this about yourself. So, how we tapped into you being a generator, Emma, and how you have more of a consistent access to your energy. What happens with generators is as long as they're doing what lights them up, they can really ride that energy wave. My husband kind of dabbles back and forth between work and playing video games all day, and that's what works for him. He gets his work done, but he's also doing something he enjoys, because we can't 1,000% of the time always do what lights us up. But for generators especially, it's so important for you to cultivate that. And it can be hard for generators to think, well, is it simply enough for me to follow my bliss and have opportunities come for me? Yes, it can be that simple. And a lot of people make it really complicated, but that's you. That's what's unique to you. Versus me, I have someone who has inconsistent access to energy. So I don't work full hour days. Whereas maybe you can do that. And generators tend to sometimes work a full day and still want to keep going. And that's permission too, to know that like you can, like you don't have to work 5 hours a week or a 4 hour work week like all the books. Like if you enjoy working 40 hours a week, then go for it. Me, I work less. It said that projectors should work up to 4 hours a day, and that may seem like crazy to some people, but we get more done in less time because we have to balance periods of productivity with rest. So,
Right.
this is really where understanding how your energy works can help you show up in the best way possible, doing what's best for you. And then also knowing where you need to set boundaries because, like I mentioned earlier, each type is susceptible to burnout just in different ways. Just because you have consistent energy, it doesn't mean you're the Energizer Bunny and can keep going forever. And non-energy types need to keep in mind that like rest is essential, not a reward.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think that's a very, not a hot topic, but this has been something that's been coming up with a lot of my clients. And I've seen it online and just like forums and conversations of energy management and where do you actually want to spend your time? Because like Lindsay, or not Lindsay, I'm looking at Lindsay who joined. What Chelsea just said is I have a lot of energy, but that doesn't mean I want to be spending every day working 12 plus hours a day. It's I need to I could do that, but this year my goal is to find better balance because I'm I have my daughter, I'm going to have the second daughter, and that's the energy that I want to be spending is time with them. That's what's going to be feeling like lights me up, but I also like working and helping people. So it's finding that right balance and knowing where you want to spend your time is so crucial. Where I feel like that's where a lot of people need help getting clarity is like, what do you actually want? That's something I help with. I know like Chelsea and I help people very similarly, but in different ways is like, what are your actual goals? How do you want to get there? And how can we make it happen? But I do it on the tech side and she does it very much more on the human design, but it all kind of blends together of, you know, I want to build a business for people that is in alignment with what they're doing, or what they want to do and how they want to live their life. Because if, you know, you run a business that's a huge team and makes X amount of dollars and you work no hours or you want to work half the time. So it's like really getting clear on what fits you and fits your desire slash lifestyle, which I think is so important. And energy helps with that because everyone gets burnt out.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just to touch on what you said, is just like I kind of inform people of, you know, this is what, you know, your energy or your chart is telling me, take, you know, what resonates and do away with the rest. And when people understand like that they, you know, have to rest a lot of the time versus being productive, then someone like that would go to Emma and say, hey, I need to take a lot of this off my plate if I'm scaling or I have a team because rest is so essential for me being in my business long term. Or, you know, if it's a generator, they maybe need to outsource things that don't light them up because that may eventually lead to burnout. So if you don't love posting your content every day, then that maybe that's something that you should look at handing off, and Emma can help you with getting systems in place to really take away things depending on, you know, what you're feeling you need to relinquish or support yourself with. Then yeah, like you absolutely help with the rollout and the tech and the strategy of all of that.
Yes. And my one client said this, she posted it in her content the other day, is there's no badge of honor for doing all the tasks in your business or doing everything else. Because I also know Chelsea, even though she doesn't have a lot of energies, but she's not that she doesn't have a lot of energy, but she works 4 hours a day, is she not only has this business, but she also has another business. So it's very possible for her to be managing multiple things and doing this, that, and the other thing, but she's tapped so well into her energy and what lights her up and doing it in a way that she's able to run two businesses, not just one on this 4 hours a day, which I think is so cool. Very inspiring for anyone listening, and just really tangible, inspirational story.
Yeah, and let me just say, like, I wouldn't say I track every day and only work for 4 hours, but I definitely feel like I take a lot of time in the morning. Like, I sleep in, and I'm the first to like wear that as a badge of honor because I fell into the trap of like reading all the books about like morning routines. And if you're not up at the crack of dawn, that you're not being productive. If you're not doing mindset every day, then you're not going to win. Like,
Yeah.
I fell prey to that. And I would say I'm the complete opposite now. Like, I sleep in, I have a really slow morning. Like, I may not start my day until 11 or noon and have lunch first. And then I'll get a lot of stuff done in the bulk of my afternoon. So, again, that just gives you so much leverage as a business owner to understand that, like, this is the way I work. I have permission to do it. And it's what's going to be best for me to get visible, to put myself out there, to run my business long term, to ask for support. Like, it's just so crucial.
It is. It so is, and I love that we were able to bring you on. Do you have anything else you want to share before I do a wrap up? I was gonna wrap up. Is that okay? Do you have
Yeah, I think we're good because I could go on for days.
Oh, I know, me too. And I don't want to give it all away in in just this episode because I think people should follow Chelsea and learn more about her or reach out if you have questions about human design, don't even know what it is, if this is your first time hearing about it. But thank you so much for sharing all of this because you really enlightened me on, just in our short time together, about things I've been wondering about human design, haven't known about. And I love the way that you phrase things and how you help your clients. So I'm so glad you were able to share that with us today. And the link, will you drop it in the comments after I post?
Yes, I can drop the link.
Perfect. And I will also be sending that out in the recap email that'll go out next week, because I like to do them on Tuesdays. So it will also be in the replay or in the email newsletter or in the comment.
Amazing. Well, thank you for having me, Emma. I hope that this was like enlightening, like you said, for not just you, but everyone watching. And I love sharing about human design. So drop any questions you have. We'll get you all the links, and so open to hearing from any of you, whatever you want to know.
Yes, thank you so much, Chelsea. And utilize her, everyone, as a resource. So
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.